Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Maple Table. My name's Nathaniel. This is a channel where we discuss everything around role-playing games, so if you enjoy them as much as I do, then hit that subscribe button to get more content around role-playing games. You may have noticed that the audio is now coming out of both channels. I have finally played around with this and figured out what has actually been happening. Here's what's been happening. In my editing process, I've been using my headphones, but they've been in surround sound, which has been making up the difference for only having my microphone recording in one channel. So that's why I didn't know what was happening. I just assumed that it was because I was not talking directly into my microphone. Once I turned off the surround sound, I noticed exactly what was happening. And yes, for every video that I've used with my new microphone, none of the sound is coming out of the right channel. Yeah, that's not a good thing. So I don't know how to fix it. Basically, the only thing that I can do is I can pull the videos down and re-upload them, but then I lose all the stats. The other thing I can do is I could just leave them and chalk it up to a learning experience. Maybe let me know what you guys think, but I would basically have to essentially re-record all of them. That uses this new microphone, which is actually just hiding right here, and you can't see it. But anyways, that's what's happened. It's been fixed, and moving forward, everything should be looking just fine. So today, we are going to be looking at the Character Operations Manual. This has been a fantastic addition to the Starfinder system. This is going to be my review of this. Holy crap, this is going to be good. Hold on to your butts. The Character Operations Manual, like I said, is probably one of the finest additions to the Starfinder core rulebooks that's basically come out since the initial core rulebook. The Character Operations Manual brings with it a whopping 7 new themes, and it also gives some variations on the classic races from the Pathfinder universe that have lived on into the new Starfinder universe. You will also find that it has 3 new classes. These are the big ones. It brings with it some new equipment. One item in particular we are going to cover on this because it made me very happy. There is new spells for the existing Mystic, the Technomancer, and for the new Witch Warper, which is one of the new classes, which we will cover. Plus, it also brings with it some additional rules and guidance for dungeon masters and storytellers around starship combat, and maybe some ideas to do with your players when they're having some downtime in their game session. So with that, let's start off with the new themes. There's 7 of them. We have the Athlete, Grifter, Guard, Law Officer, Noble Scion, Sensate, and Street Rat. The Athlete gains a +1 to Dex, Strength, or Constitution. The Grifter gains a +1 to Intelligence. The Guard gains a +1 to Strength or Dexterity. The Law Officer gains a +1 to Wisdom. The Noble Scion gains a +1 to Charisma. The Sensate a +1 to Constitution. And the Street Rat a +1 to Dex. For the sake of time, I'm not going to cover all of the new builds that you can do with some of the core races and the classic races, simply because we just don't have the time. This would be like an hour-long video. What I will do in the future, though, is I will give each race its own individual video, and we can discuss all of the changes made. I've done one with the elves, and I will link that up here, and you can take a look at the elf video. Be forewarned, the elf video will also have very fucky sound, so you've been warned. The 3 new classes we've got are Biohacker, Vanguard, and the Witch Warper, which is actually my personal favorite. The Biohacker will give 6 HP to start, and their stamina points will be 6 plus their Constitution modifier. For their key ability score, you can actually choose either Wisdom or Intelligence, and I would maybe suggest having Dexterity as a secondary. The Biohacker is more of a support type of class. They can do long-range buffs and debuffs to your party or to your enemies. This is why I suggest having Dexterity as a secondary primary stat, just because you'll be able to do you'll take long-range weapons, and you're going to do your support from a distance, because you are not an upfront character. Next, we have the Vanguard. They will start off with 7 HP. Their stamina will also be 7, plus their Constitution modifier. Constitution is going to be the Vanguard's primary stat. So build them to take a lot of hit points and a lot of damage. The book does suggest having Dexterity as a secondary. This would help with some of the armor class. I tend to agree with that. You might also want to look at maybe boosting some of the strength, taking that as a secondary or a third, just something to think about. The Vanguard is an interesting addition to the classes of Starfinder, not because it's an upfront in-your-face fighter, but because how it works is when you're in the front lines, you're taking the hits, you turn that energy of getting hit back to your opponents. And that is just kind of a really interesting way for a class to work. You have to take damage to do greater damage. It's just really neat. And finally, we have the Witch Warper. They are going to start off with 5 HP and 5 stamina points with any con bonus that they've got on top of that. Charisma is going to be your primary stat in terms of spell casting ability, so you're going to want to make sure that that is number 1. Secondary, the book is again recommending Dexterity. I've found very often that the books tend to recommend Dexterity as a secondary. Depending on what kind of build you're going for, sure, maybe you want to make Dexterity a secondary. Certainly wouldn't hurt if it was a third. I wouldn't put it much lower than that though. When it comes to feats, the Character Operations Manual has a ton of them. There's like 2.5 pages of just the short list of feats. A couple of my favorites are going to be Double Tap, Grenade Mastery, and the Eldritch Lore Chain. There's a chain of feats that you can take. The Eldritch Lore ones are specifically related to spellcasters, and it allows them to learn an additional level spell starting from level 0 all the way up to level 4. So, more spells. Space magic! Now, in the equipment section of this book, there is one particular addition that has really got me intrigued because it was not in the core rulebook, and I had based a character concept around this particular item, and it did not exist yet, and I did not know that when I was planning my character concept. And that would be shields. I will say that again. There are shields now in Starfinder. Not just like force fields that you put a protective bubble on yourself, but a physical wall of iron that you can strap to your arm. If you want more spells, this book has got them. So there is more spells being added to the Mystic and to the Technomancer, ranging from level 1 to 6 for both classes. And there is a whole section on spells specific to the Witch Warper and their level 0 to 6 spells. As for some of the new rules that have been added with the Character Operations Manual, when it comes to starship combat, there is 2 new roles that characters can be. One would be the Chief Mate, and the other would be Magic Officer. Now, this is an important addition because if you were a character like mine who was magical based, couldn't do anything when it came to the sciencey scanning stuff. The Magic Officer is allowed to do the same type of scanning mystically, but using their mysticism skill instead of science. So we have finally merged and combined space magic together. And lastly, there is some options or ideas for dungeon masters around downtime. So let's say your players have just completed their latest mission. They need to upgrade their starship because they're going into some pretty dangerous territory. That's going to take a couple of days. What do you do for a couple of days? Do you just hand wave the time going by? Sure, you could do that. Or you could use some of these options for downtime that would be more appropriate for the characters, and it will actually give them some bonuses that they could then use in the scenes to come up. I really, really like this idea. I've implemented it in my own versions when I've been running games in different games, but this is actually a really well thought out addition to the game, and I'm really happy with it. And I think that if you're running the game, this is going to give you a few ideas to help your players out, and if you're a bit of a creative, then you can definitely take some of these ideas and just run with them. Well, that has been a Maple Table review of the Character Operations Manual. I really enjoyed this book. This was a great purchase, and if you're thinking about picking it up, you should absolutely do so. I might have an affiliate link down below. If I don't, there will probably be one eventually. If you're thinking about doing it, it'll probably be to Amazon. If you liked today's video, don't forget to hit that like button. If you like the content that's around my channel, hit that subscribe button, and thanks for stopping by, everyone.